Hi there, so I'm about to go out to work, but I just wanted to make a quick video because I just finished The Vegetarian and I cannot remember ever having such an unpleasant experience with a book before. I honestly, I'm kind of almost speechless by how upset I am because of this book. And like, I don't want to say like, it's not because it was awful or anything like that. And the first third of it was like I quite liked it, but I was starting to feel a little bit uneasy. I guess it's just like unsettling, and I'm not unused to unsettling things, I think. So I don't. It's really hard for me to describe what my reading experience was with this, except that it was not good. I think there's some things about the writing as well which like annoyed me, and there's lots of little things that bothered me, like typos and stuff. But I kind of felt like my feeling now is maybe I'm noticing those critical things because when something really upsets you, you kind of ask yourself like why do I feel so awful, and and you start looking, you want to criticize the text rather than think about how maybe you've got some deep rooted feelings which were just like my own personal baggage that I bring to something which is a pretty sad book. Yeah, definitely not what I was expecting. It's just brutal. I don't want to go into the plot. I'll talk more about it later. But basically, I'm really happy to get this out of my house because at the moment it just feels like almost like contaminating. Like I genuinely felt like unwell when I was getting through the last parts of it. And I was just waiting for it to finish so I could be like, okay, I'm done. It's so short as well. It's like drinking poison. It was awful. So to cleanse myself of that, definitely I need something lighthearted, and so my next book will definitely be Moomins. I'm really looking forward to just like completely cleansing my palate, completely like getting rid of the horrible images and thoughts that that book put into my head. And just going into Moomin land and having a nice time. Also because this is super short and I'm going to be so busy this week. Originally this week I was planning to do loads of reading because Jennifer at Insert Literary Pun here and the other people who are hosting this month's Women in Translation Month are doing a readathon that started I think yesterday or 2 days ago or something. So like I didn't plan. I knew I wasn't going to be able to read loads, but I planned to kind of like up my reading game a lot this week. But actually I've got loads of work and visa stuff and it's just going to be really hectic, so I'm not going to be able to read that much this week, unfortunately. So better keep it simple, keep it Moomin land. And yeah, so tomorrow I'm going to go to the library, and because all the books need to be renewed. So that's all for now. That's my update. I think tomorrow will be my last video as well. It has a nice circularity to it, like I'm starting with the library and ending with the library. And also, yeah, I need to put this stuff up online. See you later. Hello there, here I am at the library again, and I am actually terrified that they're going to say I can't renew these books for whatever reason. I mean, because I've never taken books out of a public library in Japan, having always done it from the university library. So we'll see. I mean, surely that's just a universal rule, right? As long as no one's like reserved them or anything. Tried to do it online last night, but couldn't figure that out. So I had to walk half an hour to get here and do it in person. Hopefully, we'll see how it goes. So yeah, I will check back in a moment and let you know if I still have my books. Done. Yay, I still have all my books. And I had a little tinkering so that now I should be able to do that all from home and not have to walk for an hour in the sun. Well, it's not sunny, but in the mugginess of late August. So I think I'll report back when I get home, and yeah, now I gotta run because otherwise I'll be late for work. See ya. I had to record this moment of shocking narrative revelation when I found out that actually the Moomin world is coterminous with our world. So there is one universe, presumably, in which humans and Moomins coexist. Really, for me, mind-blowing stuff. There you have it, a cold draft on the back of the neck when you're alone. That's what a Moomin is, folks. Now we all know. Not a hippo. Nope. Cold draft on the back of the neck when you're alone.
肩までです。ご乗車ありがとうございました。折り口は左側です。
Well, here I am in Hatama again to see my dance teacher once again about the visa sponsorship stuff. So hopefully that will be finished soon. Well, it has to be finished soon because my visa will run out soon. So I've got in addition to my normal stresses, I've also got the whole will I be able to stay in the country stuff going on in the background. I mean, I should be able to stay in the country. It should go off without a hitch, I'd imagine, but I've never applied for this type of visa before. So we're just gonna have to see how it goes. And you know, if it fails, then I have to go back to virus-ridden England, which won't be so fun. So, you know, I'd rather stay here. But we'll see how that pans out in the next week or so. Meantime, I'm really enjoying just being able to take the train out here, see this beautiful countryside, and also just have a lovely train to read my books on. So, you know, not complaining or anything. Just had some lovely tea with my sensei, and you can see the sun is setting over there. Quite nice. And yeah, I feel much more reassured now than I did before about my visa stuff. Hopefully it should go pretty well. The name of my prefecture is Fukuoka, which means happy hills, sounding kind of like a saccharine American suburb, or like a maybe really seedy hotel or something like that. But it actually has sort of meaning, because as you can see there are hills surrounding the whole area of Fukuoka, both the prefecture and the city. Coming from the UK, like, a hill is a much smaller thing than the things that we see around here. Like, the UK is really flat, or at least the parts of it around where I grew up. So yeah, it's, for me, these are really more like mountains, more like happy mountains, and I do feel happy every time I see them. It still feels, even after living here for ages, it feels kind of nice, and I don't know, like there's just something there on the horizon that you could go to. Gotta say, I'm loving the Moomins so far. Like, since it's so early, I guess I didn't think that it would connect so much to the later comics, if that makes sense. Also because, you know, Moomins are kind of random. I mean, I don't know how much of what I'm reading is Moomin canon, is what I'm saying, but it all seems so far to just be like an earlier version. Like, the characters look younger, but they're the same characters that come later in the comics, which is so cool. So, you know, I feel like I'm learning like the origin story of the Moomin universe and everything, and like everyone's backstory, and it's just brilliant. Even like Moomins themselves, like what they actually are, is talked about, which is something that I'd never thought that Tove Jansson talked about. So like I thought we just accepted that there were Moomins. So anyway, basically I'm going deep into Moomin lore with this book and loving every second of it. Like, I had no idea that fucking Moomin Papa just abandoned Moomin Mama and little Moomin Troll. Like, what the hell is up with that? But yeah, he's not in the book so far, and they explain his absence by saying he just ran off with a different kind of creature, like some other kind of troll. And yeah, there's different types of trolls, not just Moomin trolls. There's also house trolls, and I forget what they're called, like no, I don't remember. But anyway, yeah, he basically was just the adventuring type, which is, you know, true to character as he is in the comics, and just runs off and abandons his family. And Moomin Mama tells this story around the campfire and then cries. It's so brutal. And they all cry. They're all crying. But it's also just really fun. There's also, I think, Sniff, like Moomin's friend, you know, but like as like baby Sniff. I guess this is like kind of like the Baby Yoda kind of feeling. Like, it's the main characters that I'm used to, but they're all smaller and cuter, and like, you know, meeting each other for the first time and stuff. So that's really exciting. I guess my train will be here soon. Seriously, I still feel kind of shook up after the vegetarian, but this Moomin is good for the soul. I mean, the vegetarian is deeply lodged underneath my skin, and I don't think it's going to ever come out, to be honest. Like the blood on Lady Macbeth's hands, you know, it doesn't matter how much you scrub. I don't know, it's there like my own guilt. It somehow like infused itself with my own generic sense of Catholic guilt that I inherited from my family, I think. But Moomins are great, and wow, I made this sound much worse than it is. Moomins are great, and they make me feel happy. The sky is pretty. I'm a fool, so I've only had like 2 bits of bread all day, basically. And I didn't expect to get back this late. My sensei had me chatting for ages, which was lovely and great, but it's really past dinner time, so time to eat. Bon appetit! Hello there, it's the evening time. Well, no, it's the middle of the night. And I have my ice pack wrapped in a wet towel on the back of my neck and the air conditioning on, as you can hear, to keep me cool. I have my chocolate ice cream, which is melting very quickly. I have my poison of choice, which is called imojochu, a sweet potato based liquor, which I'm enjoying with a cup of hot water. And most importantly, out of all these things, I have my Moomin book, which I am almost finished with, and I'm going to finish now, and it is the best thing I've read in ages, and it is cleansing and relaxing and comforting and just wonderful for the soul. So I'm going to finish this now with all my other worldly delights, and then I will get back to you. Finished. Well, that was incredible. That was just so like fucking moving. So wholesome, so pure, and I don't know. It reminded me of so many other things that I love, like had bits of Little Prince in it, and these drawings. I don't know what the right term for this kind of drawing is, where they have those lines, those deep, like almost like etched kind of dark lines. Like that reminded me of Edward Gorey, who I love, and so the kind of the frayed edges reminded me a little bit also of someone like, I don't know, Quentin Blake, who did the illustrations for Roald Dahl. And this was, I don't know, this was better than anything. I absolutely adored this. And at the end though, it got kind of moving, and I don't know, I started feeling like that little seezy kind of seezy, not like a seizure. I started feeling that thing in your chest, you know, that little tightening where you're like, oh no. And it wasn't, not that it was sad, it was just that it was happy. But also there was these scenes which are haunting of the flood of the flood. Look at this. Can you see in this poor light? But like, that's the flood, and there's the trees, and then there's these little creatures up in the trees. And then it talks about how they made these fires on the shore, like the creatures, because it, you know, just like, it's so, you know, matter of fact and children's adventure kind of thing. And then it talks about like, oh, and on the shore these creatures were all making little fires because, you know, many of them had lost their homes. And then, you know, there's these anglerfish which help them out and make soup for them. And oh my god, it's just like, it's desolate, but it's so friendly and lovely. And it was she started writing it in 1939, it says at the beginning, and it was published in 1945. So although like it's not like about war obviously, but there's these scenes of like the creatures kind of taking care of each other and huddling together in the face of natural disaster, and the little fires is on the river bank is just haunting. Yeah, a lot of the pictures are pretty haunting, but also just kind of beautiful. Like, the story is so, I can't talk about this book. It's too just in my head. It's too, I mean, like, fresh. But I'll think about it. I'll get my thoughts together and I'll have something more coherent to say about it. But for now, I'm so happy I read this. Oh, another thing, I kind of said it a bit before back in Hatama, but yeah, it really is amazing for like lore of the Moomin world. Like, I know how the Moomin house ended up in the Moomin Valley, and I know why the Moomin house is the shape that it is, and you know, I know how Sniff originally met Moomin, and you know, it's just like gives so much backstory. So I think it's amazing that even though this was just like a rough draft for what she, you know, went on to make and became like her main legacy, like she didn't abandon this or decide like, okay, well now I'm going to do it for real later on. Like, she built on everything here and just, you know, brought it in a different direction. I think at the beginning I was originally worried it was going to be too kid-like, if that makes sense, because I've only read her comic strips before, and they are very like adult in ways. Like, they're quite dry in the humor and like satirical. I think like a lot of the characters, while they're sort of surreal and magical, they're also kind of like like adults but also like children, and it's, I don't know, it seems like very clever, dark, witty stuff, which I thought, this is obviously a kid's book, it's not going to have that, and it didn't. It doesn't have that kind of like slightly like almost cynical satire that I think is in the Moomin comic strips, but it's just so magical instead, and it has like these wonderful characters and wonderful like kind of familiar story fairy tale kind of tropes, like, and she says she wrote a fairy tale specifically because it was the beginning of the World War, so like she said, or she didn't say that directly, but she says it's no surprise that I wanted to begin. She says, perhaps it was understandable that I suddenly felt an urge to write down something that was to begin with once upon a time. And then she says, what followed had to be a fairy tale. That was inevitable, but I excused myself with avoiding princes, princesses, and small children, and chose instead my angry signature character from the cartoons, and called him the Moomin Troll. And so the Moomin Troll was born. This is amazing, and I want to do like a proper review of it. Or maybe I shouldn't. Maybe words can't do it justice. Just read Moomins if you haven't already. They're so freaking great. So great. My ice cream's all melted. I talked about before how like I felt unclean and poisoned by the vegetarian. I'm going to give a more fair assessment of it later. But suffice to say, although that story is forever lodged in my head, like Moomins has really helped kind of like refresh me after that book, like in a big way. That book, man, not just Moomins, The Haunting of Hill House, that's my other comfort thing right now. The Haunting of Hill House, I'm listening to it on audiobook. I'm over halfway through. It's amazing. I love it so much. The characters have this delightfully antiquated way of speaking with each other, and one just finds it all so charming, and they're all like, there's such good banter between them, the characters in this haunted house, and it is actually, I'm surprised, like, I read somewhere that it wasn't scary. I find it pretty scary, but for me, like, freaky Moomin forest is like kind of analogous to a haunted house story, like haunted houses where things go bump in the night and there's mysterious eyes and writing on the wall and some strange animal rustling in the bushes and a group of people together trying to figure out what's going on. That for me is just comfort food. That is comfort reading. It makes me feel happy, excited, like just it makes me feel relaxed and where I want to be, which might sound strange because it's obviously horror, but it does it for me. Whereas something like this, which is really real and has got, rape and all sorts of psychological knots, which are like hit really close to home, and about, like just dealing with, I don't know, being like the line between artistry and mental illness, and also like between having desires to do something but also fitting into just social order and just life, and then also the people who like go one way or the other and what that divide is, and lots of like kind of body stuff as well. Like the blood in this book, there's a lot of blood in The Vegetarian. I talked before about in a different video about the covers, and I didn't mention that in this cover the leaf pattern, which I love and I did mention, is red, and so the leaf veins in the background look kind of like animal, capillaries, like blood. It looks like blood, right? So it's like got this hybrid image of bird and leaf, plant and blood and veins, and like, yeah, it's, and also like a bit of a plant and a bit of a bird. It's kind of like bits of bodies, and it's just, now that I've finished the book, I realize how amazing this cover actually is. It gets so much of like themes and ideas that don't even become apparent until the end of the book, and also, yeah, there's a lot of blood in it. But yeah, like I love this cover. This is an amazing cover. I love it so much more than I love the actual book content. But what are you gonna do? This is now liquid ice cream. I love how they keep them like these things coolish. Like, once your ice cream melts, it's still good to go. It's not like dripping down your face, getting on your shorts or anything like that. It's just kept in a nice little bag. Perfect. Anyway, so yeah, that's my reading. The Haunting of Hill House, I want to say something more about it, but I can't think of what to say. Just except everyone's gonna love the adventure. Okay, I think I'm gonna wrap up this vlog now. It's because it's quite late, and yeah, I'm glad I can end this vlog on like a kind of positive note. I was gonna originally end it before, but the vegetarian just brought me down so much that, you know, I needed something bright and cheery, and I found it in haunted houses and Moomins and floods. So thank you so much for listening if you watched all this way, and I'm of course going to see how many more of these books I can read. Well, how much more of these books I can read before the end of the month. I forgot to say something. I forgot to mention Beauty in Disarray, with the book mark upside down for some reason. Beauty in Disarray. I've paused this one because I needed a pick-me-up after The Vegetarian, and while I am enjoying it, it's not the kind of like comfort that I need right now. It's just like, oh wow, this is fun and interesting, and like it's like, you know, I'm enjoying reading it, but I needed something that would just make me feel warm and happy and like hopeful, I guess, as well, you know, like that this world isn't such a shit place as I felt after I finished The Vegetarian. That was the thing about The Vegetarian, like it made me feel like life is just shit and everything is just like the worst thing ever. And you know, like those are feelings that I think everyone has sometimes, you know, like why is everything just so shit? And you know, to have that really highlighted and just like thrown in your face, like, you know, anyway, I didn't hate The Vegetarian, it just hit me really hard. So I needed not Beauty in Disarray, not a biography of someone who's interesting but also had a quite tragic life, well, tragic death really, but also I just needed Moomins. I just needed Moomins. I needed Moomin Troll, Moomin Mama, Moomin Papa, especially Moomin Mama. She's the hero. I'm going to talk about that when I talk about this book. The hero is Moomin Mama, and she's like, I never appreciated how great she is until I read this book. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to end this vlog. Thank you for listening, and yeah, I'm really glad I could end on a positive note. So I will talk more about my Women in Translation books later. I will talk about them in a video like for the wrap-up thing for the month. Right, I think I'm going to leave it there. So kampai, cheers, sláinte, salud, whatever, and I will see you in the next video. Good night. Something else about the Moomins, which is just great in this book, which I don't remember ever seeing in her comics, is that their tails move, like, depending on their emotions. So, like, on the cover, you can see the tails look really straight, and that's because in the story, they're really scared at that point, and then when they're really excited, you see their tails have got little, like, motion lines, like they're wagging them like dogs, and then when they're relaxed, they're kind of, like, limp and hanging, and they, like, that's just something I don't know if that is in the comics, but I really noticed how, you know, expressive Moomin tales are, and that's definitely something I've taken away from this reading experience, which will stay with me. It had just the right amount of peril mixed with relief, a sense of that things are gonna be okay if we just keep going. Also, yeah, there were some pretty real things here, apart from the flood. Also, the fact that Moomin Papa abandons them, you know, and like, what a dick. There were also like loads of subversions of the fairy tale tropes. Like she says at the beginning, no princesses and stuff like that. But there's definitely princess kind of feelings in this book, and you know, the gender of the characters who are active and passive, and also like the gendered characters, like these guys. I can't say their name again. I only know them as like relatives. That's what they're called, just relatives. Or distant relatives in the comics, but here they have a different name. Hattie Fatteners. Anyway, those kind of weird, like Ghibli-like guys. By the way, Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki definitely took some stuff from Tove Jansson. I'm calling it now. I mean, he made the original Moomin cartoons in Japan back in the 70s, I want to say. But anyway, yeah. So if you look at this and you get Ghibli vibes, then there's a reason. It's because Miyazaki, I mean, I don't know if that's official or anything, but I am convinced he got some of his ideas from Moomin Valley and beyond. There's also this thing from the Odyssey, like where they're on the quest to, well, at the beginning they're trying to get out of the swamp and into the sunlight. They haven't seen sunlight in so long, and then they find this guy, and he says like, come in, like come into my garden. My sun is so wonderful. I have the best sunshine in the world. And they go in and they find this beautiful garden, and they find that the the rivers are made of like, I don't know, lemonade, and the trees have got sweets on them, and there's a big artificial sun that he's built, and he's just put this whole thing together for them. And so they're all, the kids are for, well, Moomin Troll and Sniff, or in this he's not called Sniff, he's just called the little creature, which I like, but they're all like kind of running around and just enjoying, and it's like heaven for them. But Moomin Mama is like, yeah, well, you know, we're gonna pass through here. And you know, if you're an adult reader as well, you're like, okay, this is actually not very good, having like an artificial sun and just like sweets everywhere and like kind of a fake garden. But it reminded me a lot of the Odyssey and the Lotus Eaters, that episode where, you know, they're or a lot of things in the Odyssey where you're trying to go home and then you arrive on an island on the way home, like on your main quest journey, but the island actually seems really attractive and you think, oh, this is it, let's just stay here, let's just live here. But you know, actually we all know that's not where you're supposed to go, you know. Like the Lotus Eaters, they eat the lotus fruit and it makes them like kind of drugged out and blissed out, and they're just like, yeah, let's just stay here forever, forget our families and all that. And we know that's not what they're supposed to do. And yeah, like this idea of like kind of false joys on the way, or temptations, you know, like temptations in the desert before you make it to the other side, to your final goal. That's such a like mythic kind of fairy tale like archetype, and things like that just cropped up in this wonderfully, and were done in such a light way. Her writing is so light, it's so like, yeah, like Little Prince, only more childlike, less philosophical. Moomins are just fantastic, and I really want to read more Moomins now. That healed me. That book healed me way more than I had expected it would after, you know, the ravages of Kang. Okay, I'm gonna stop this video. I've already said night before, but I'm gonna say it again. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Good night.